Welcome to the Epic Vision Zone. I am so honored and pleased to introduce my guest today, who is a global speaker, author, pioneering journalist, business executive, podcast host, a former elected official and lifetime change agent who has been on the front lines of women's progress for nearly 5 decades. She's the author of Powering Up, a book that she will introduce later on in the interview here, and the host of 2 podcasts, Powering Up and Game Changers, a podcast that is aired on the International Women's Forum. She began her career as a trailblazing television, news, and sports broadcaster in the 1970s, and in 1980s, she was inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame for her national leadership role in opening sports locker rooms for women journalists. And we'll dig into that a little later. She earned her business credentials as a Ford Motor Company communications and governmental affairs executive and was named by Automotive News to its first list of 100 leading women in the auto industry. Following her early retirement from Ford, she ran for political office and served for 4 years on the Auburn Hills City Council. A voice for advancing women and girls, her work has taken her to 6 continents, including assignments for the U.S. State Department in the Middle East, Europe, and the Caribbean. She is the current president of the Michigan chapter of the International Women's Forum, which will bring 800 women leaders from 6 continents to Detroit for the IWF's World Leadership Conference in the fall of 2023. My mistake. Thank you. A graduate of the University of Michigan, she has studied at the University of Madrid and has completed graduate work at Northwestern, Harvard, and Duke universities. She is the mother of a 28-year-old son and a lifelong horsewoman and traveler whose work and interests have taken her to over 30 countries on 6 continents. Welcome, Anne Doyle. Oh my gosh.
I'm so happy to be here, Jane.
Thank you so much. You are such a trailblazing woman. Oh my gosh. So my first question to you is, what drives your passion to be a voice for women's leadership?
Well, I think that part of it is the fact that I had an incredibly high consciousness, courageous mother and an awesome father as well. So, I mean, it starts as a girl. But another really important piece for me, Jane, is the age, the times when I came of age. So I came of age in the United States, graduating from the university in the early 1970s when incredible opportunities were opening up for women. And the way I describe it is that, you know, the laws were changing so that doors were being unlocked. But it was up to my generation of women to push those doors open and sometimes kick those doors in. And on top of that, to make sure that we kept that door open once we got in. So to keep it open, you know, for the other generations of women that came after us. So that's a huge piece of it.
Yeah, I actually read that during when you moved into a business career with the Ford Motor Company, and you say that you were knocking down the locked doors, that's what you were referring to.
Well, I was referring to, I was a senior at the University of Michigan doing an internship at the university's NPR radio station, and the news director literally would not let me step foot into the newsroom. I mean, he stood at the door and said to me, oh, you're the new intern here? Yeah. And he said, do you see this line? Don't you cross it. Don't come in here to put anything on my desk. Don't answer the phone. Don't come to read the news wire, because there's no place in a newsroom for a woman. And wow. So, I mean, it wasn't only at Ford Motor Company 15 years later. I mean, it was really every step of the way. And my story is not unique. I mean, that is where we were at that moment. And any woman of my generation who was moving into a position that women didn't hold before, can tell you her stories. There's millions of stories like that.
That is amazing. I have never come across that. I have worked in a male-dominated industry, but nothing to that extent. And that is, wow. So you were knocking and kicking down doors. So
oh yeah, where we were not wanted, and it was made very clear to us that we were not wanted there.
right.
And and we had the laws changing behind us. I mean, the whole issue of me opening sports locker rooms. I mean, I was actually hired as one of the first women TV sports broadcasters in the country. I'm the daughter of a sports broadcaster, and my dad, when I had that opportunity, he told me to take that job. But I said, Dad, if I take this job, I'm going to have to get into this fight about the locker rooms. And he said, yeah. And he said, you have to fight it. And at that moment, the lawsuit was on its way to the Supreme Court. And then that's how you change laws, is there has to be a test case. And there was a test case with the New York Times, it was Sports Illustrated suing the New York Yankees. So that was on its way to the Supreme Court when I was hired. But it wasn't until the ruling came down that the teams cannot discriminate against credentialed women reporters.
Wow.
And keep them out while the men went in. It wasn't until that law changed that the opportunity was even there. But because before, the teams could just say, sorry, we don't want you here and you're not coming in. But then, as I like to say to people, it's one thing for the law to change. It's another thing entirely to be a young rookie female sports reporter, really literally almost hyperventilating.
That's what I was going to.
That locker room and trying to force yourself to walk in. And that's what it takes. I mean, it takes not only laws changing, but it's longer to change hearts and minds and change culture. And that takes lots and lots of individuals being willing to say, I'm going to face the resistance because I know it's the right thing to do, and it will open not only an opportunity for me, but for others.
I love that. It takes guts and courage too. I mean, that is an amazing story. I can just imagine you being a young female and walking into that locker room for the first time. I mean, whoa, talk about someone brave enough to step out of her comfort zone. That's an amazing story, Anne, just amazing.
Well, I have lots of stories like that, and it's not just the first time, it's the second and the third and the 10th and the dozens of times, and you're tested over and over and over again in those situations. But you know what, Jane, I also like to say my life was never threatened. I was never beaten. I was never, and we're at a moment in history right now where we're facing a lot of awareness about injustice that we really can't ignore anymore. So I understand gender injustice very, very clearly, but I also have great respect for the courage of people who are willing to confront even more dangerous situations. So I think when it comes to leadership, I put courage right at the top of that list. And there's all different levels of courage. And, it's a little bit like weightlifting. You start with the small stuff and get stronger and stronger. And so that when those moments arrive, because we are all tested.
Right.
Everybody is tested. And it's scary for all of us to step out of your comfort zone. It's never easy. But I think if you really want to achieve incredible things and achieve your full potential, I think we have to force ourselves to get out of our comfort zone, and that takes courage.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I've read that women are building an economic and social momentum throughout the world. Speaking of shifting things, do you believe that we're on the verge of big changes that will shake up work cultures? I mean, I know we've been in it for some time, but we're seeing a lot of shifts again in cultures and in the world. So do you believe we're going to be constantly on the verge of something big, more big changes coming?
Yeah, I hope we're not constantly on the verge because I want the tsunami to hit.
Right.
You know, I would say, to answer your question, yes, I do believe that I'm going to live long enough, and I think we really are on the verge of another dramatic wave of forward movement in terms of human equality and tapping all human potential. And I say that because I was lucky enough, you know, to be a young woman, ambitious young woman at the time of the women's movement and the civil rights movement, you know, of the 1970s and even into the early 80s in the United States. And so I know what it looks like when culture is on the move.
Mm.
And then what happened is after that, we sort of settled in. And maybe that's what happens is maybe you have to have significant cultural change. And then it's almost like people have to sort of like get comfortable with, you know, that like, wow, that was scary. And, you know, and so we had to get comfortable with more and more women in those roles.
Right.
And more and more people of color in roles where we'd never seen them before.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to get comfortable with that. But then I was very discouraged. And in my book, I talk about it. It's like I thought that I saw the middle for women getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you had, you know, more doctors, more lawyers, more MBAs, more women starting businesses. But we weren't really continuing to move up into leadership. And that we were, it was like that, those levels we got more and more and more, but we weren't going anywhere we hadn't gone before. Mm. And so what I see now, and I see it being led by this next generation of younger women, and you know, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they're leading it. And they are so much further ahead than I was and my generation at their age, because, you know, and that's what we want. You know, we want each generation to go faster, go further, you know, think of themselves and their potential in bigger ways than we were able to imagine. So I would say yes, absolutely. And it's happening everywhere in the world.
Yeah, I was reading recently that economists predict that by 2024, the average woman in the US and the number of rich European countries will out-earn the average man. And as a market, women represent an opportunity bigger than China and India combined, controlling $20 trillion, excuse me, in consumer spending. And when you figure that out, I mean, are women, in fact, in the future driving world economies? I mean, do you believe that our next recovery will be female-led, possibly?
I think we're a long way from that.
Okay.
I truly do. I mean, I'm familiar with the numbers in terms of the economic power that women have. I mean, we are half of the world's population after all. And now, I mean, never in the history of the world have we seen so many educated women as we have now, who have the potential to make independent economic decisions and that we've ever seen in the history of the world. And so the potential is really there. I think we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. But I also, I would like to see women being more conscious of how to use our collective power. I think we have seen tremendous individual accomplishment, but for us truly to see dramatic change, we need women to understand my mantra, which is every woman for herself is a losing strategy. Because we, you know, there's an old African proverb that I love. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I believe that women, we're still in kindergarten when it comes to understanding how and why to leverage our collective power. And leveraging our collective spending power is a great way to do that, which is why I'm all about by women. I mean, you know, I mean, I do business with women as much as I can. And I certainly support tremendously women entrepreneurs. And I'm all about women being financially independent.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And women in general are starting more companies or becoming entrepreneurs more than men. And taking that and putting it into saying, taking your passion and making it not just your profit, but doing work that you love, that requires a certain mindset and a certain, I guess, amount of courage and bravery. What would you say to a woman who is on the cusp of possibly starting her own business or just starting to launch her business in these turmoil times? What advice would you give them?
Well, there's a couple things that I would say, Jane. I mean, number one, my all-time advice in every situation is the words of my father, who always, he said to every one of his kids, his 7 children, and my father was he was a professional athlete. He was a naval officer, and he was a sports broadcaster who covered championship athletes, you know, and so he knew a few things about winning. And he would say, never eliminate yourself. And I mean, I still use that today because women culturally are, you know the research. I mean, men consistently overestimate their abilities, and women consistently underestimate our abilities. And so so that cultural stuff that starts on us when we're little girls is that little voice inside that says, what are you doing? Or maybe I can't, or maybe I'll fail, or maybe, you know, that holds us back. And men don't have that voice. You know, they have this voice, you know, that old joke about, you know, if men are putting on their pants and they're a little bit tight, they say, you know, the cleaner shrunk my pants. And then think, oh, I must have put on a little weight.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about that, you know, that we're always undermining ourselves. And so, I mean, that's the big piece. Number 2, I would say, you know, back to courage. Go ahead, you know, take the risk, do it. And don't be afraid to fail, because everybody fails. And all the research shows that the very most successful business, think of Lincoln, how many times did he run for office and was defeated? You know, you have to, and many of the most successful businesses, they had failures before they ever kind of got it right. So don't be afraid to fail, jump in there and start. And so if something goes wrong, just pick yourself right back up, jump back on the horse and go after it again, if that's your passion. And you know, the reality is still that women have get a very small percentage of the private equity out there. You know, the money. I mean, when you're going to get money, ask for a whole lot more. I mean, think big.
Right. Think bigger and go out there and basically, do you find that having a mentor is very useful for entrepreneurs to find someone that can show them the road that maybe they've traveled and try to avoid some of those bumps?
Well, I think that multiple mentors,
Okay.
and not going to, there's very few people who are going to be your mentor and tell you exactly how to do it. But multiple people who have experience and skills are very happy to share with you some experiences. So I would say, don't ask someone to be your mentor. I mean, look around and find, and as you see someone who you think might have some wisdom to share with you, just ask for that. I mean, most people are very, very willing to, you know, take a little time to talk to somebody.
Right.
But that's different than, I mean, if you eventually run into someone who takes you under her wing and wants to be your sponsor, which is very different from a mentor. I mean, those are the people who invest in you,
Right.
money, talk about how fantastic you are to everybody else when you're not even around. So I would say, think a lot bigger than just one mentor.
Right, right. Well, you wrote that it's time for women to stop being politely angry. I love that phrase. And that change begins with our voices, our votes, and our money, and leveraging that collectively, as you said before. So unpack that a little bit more for our audience, because I thought that was very profound.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being angry.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a thing as righteous anger.
Mm-hmm.
And we really, and that can be a good fire in your belly. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be mean, but if you can't look around at our world and not be angry about so much human potential that is being wasted
Mm-hmm.
and destroyed, and including your own as women, you know?
Yeah.
And so don't be afraid of that, and don't be afraid of being angry about it. And so I would say that, yeah, but then take that anger, it's what you do with it. I mean, if you let it eat you up and be really mad, well, that's just wasted anger.
Mm-hmm.
And, but also, that whole thing about being politely angry, that's not enough. That is not enough to be politely angry, because polite will get you nowhere. You don't have to be rude, but you need to be assertive, and you need to be very, very clear, and you need to not step back when somebody pushes you.
Right. So let your anger fuel you, as opposed to stop you, or like you say, just bubbling up and spewing hatred and whatnot. But let it serve you. Let it serve you. Yeah.
And be angry at anybody who undermines your dream.
Mm-hmm.
Be angry.
I like that.
Anybody who says, I don't know, that sounds pretty risky to me, or don't you worry your pretty little head about this, or all these things,
Yeah.
That people, sometimes even well-intentioned people,
Mm-hmm.
say things that undermine women reaching their full potential.
Yes.
So, just have your radar up, and don't allow any of that to infect you. Or
Absolutely. Yes.
Just people around you who build you up. That's it.
Yes, absolutely. You need supporters, because those are the people that will give you the energy to keep going. But I love that. If get angry at anybody who undermines your dream. Oh, I think that's beautiful advice. So
yeah. And the best way to do that is just get them out of your life. You don't even have to have a fight with them. It's like, I got no time for you.
I'm busy. I'm
busy. And another thing I always say, I'm a huge believer in women. We've got to support one another. I mean, because if women don't support other women, why should men support us?
Exactly.
If we don't do business with other women and build them up, why would we expect men to do business with us?
Yes.
And so, and I can really tell very, very quickly if a woman is someone who aligns herself with and supports other women, or if she's a woman who undermines and separates herself from other women.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't have time for women who undermine other women and are so concerned about fitting in with the guys that they walk away from the gals.
Yeah.
I don't have time for them. And I just say, you know what, good luck to you. But I'm going to put my energy in women who understand the importance of women supporting other women.
Yes, absolutely. I'm with you on that. So in your experience, speaking of supporting each other, what do you feel holds women back from reaching their next level?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, I mean, of course there are, of course there's culture, of course there's, I mean, we're not even in the Constitution, I mean, we need to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. I mean, women are not protected in the Constitution. And so there are all kinds of factors like that. But I truly do think the biggest thing holding women back is ourselves. I really do believe that. There's no question about that. And that's the most powerful piece of it all. And so you just, it's just about finding your courage, believing in yourself, you know, surrounding yourself with people who will lift you up instead of pulling you down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't ignore the fact that there's still, women are still paid less than men. It's still more difficult for women to borrow money for their businesses and all those things. I mean, women are totally underrepresented in political office in terms of the policies and laws that are passed in this country. I mean, we don't have enough women on corporate boards. I mean, I could go on and on in terms of all of the issues. But I truly believe, Jane, that the number one piece is inside of us, and believing in ourselves and being willing to fight. Because you and I talked a couple days ago a little bit, and you said, no, I don't know about that word fight. And to me, I think you have to fight. You have to, and it's the good fight. It's to fight the good fight, and fight it with a smile on your face and belief in yourself and energy. But believe me, I mean, to be truly successful as a woman entrepreneur, you got to be willing to fight.
Yes. Well,
fight for yourself, fight for your business, fight for other women, fight for economic opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we have to first believe in ourselves, which I agree 100%. I mean, if we don't believe in ourselves, how is anybody else going to believe in us, right? Whether you're championing women's leadership or building a business or making a move in your career. It's like it goes back to that confidence when boys are like, you know, they overestimate their capabilities and women underestimate them. So yeah, I really believe in that. So what 3 skills would you say can up-level a woman's business potential?
Oh my gosh.
Did I give you a hard one? Oh no.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's all right. I mean, I made a whole career out of asking hard questions.
Okay.
But, you know, I mentioned courage already, you know, and I'm going to come back to that. And I do put that in the category of skill, because I believe that courage is something that you can develop. Mm-hmm. And that you get better and stronger at courage by taking the little ones, and every time you do it and take a bigger step, you get stronger. And courage is essential, because you have to be a risk taker. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone if you're going to build a successful business.
Right.
And, another really important piece is I'm a huge fan of, your communication skills. I mean, communication skills are absolutely essential in terms of, how you're interacting other people, how you're interacting with your employees, how you are attracting customers and clients, all those things. And so, really developing your communication skills. And part of that is, even how women use their voices. I mean, it still drives me a little bit crazy when I hear women talking in these soft little voices.
Yes.
And
it drives me crazy too. I'm sorry, but
the vocal cords to talk in a strong voice is just a matter of developing them and using them and speaking. You can speak up here in your head, you can speak here in your nose, or you can speak from your diaphragm. And the strength comes from speaking with your diaphragm. And how you communicate is people make very quick decisions about whether you're going to be a successful business person. Yes. Based on those first impressions. So I would add that. And then money. Mm-hmm. Money. Financial acuity is absolutely fundamental. And so if, you don't have to be a CPA or a bookkeeper, but you've got to understand money and how to keep an eye on it, how to keep track of the money that you have, and how to go after and get the money that you're going to need for capital to build your business.
Yes, then that's a hard one for a lot of women. They don't know how to ask for money, or they don't know how to put a business plan together to show where they're going to use the money, how it's going to grow, et cetera, especially when, you know, a lot of women form a nonprofit, and then, you know, they'd like to go out and get some money for that nonprofit. But people who are going to contribute to any business, it doesn't matter, they want to understand your business plan and what you're doing to, if it's a nonprofit, not necessarily the profits that are coming out of it, but what are you doing to generate, you know, what to use that money. You're right, financial acuity, and certainly if you're not aware of it, take some classes.
Yeah, absolutely. Take some classes. You can take them at the, you know, the community college for very, very little money.
Right.
And I think that's really fundamental. You don't have to become, you know, an MBA to run a successful business, but that's definitely, you have three legs of a stool that you're going to build it on. I mean, that's got to be an essential piece of it. And I'm sure, Jane, that you will have people who have expertise in that as part of your summit.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And what is your definition of women's leadership?
I love that. You know, in my book, you know, and I guess you'll mention it, but can I hold up my book?
Sure.
Yeah. I am going to offer a special deal on my book for people, but, you know, my book is called Powering Up: How America's Women Achievers Become Leaders. But one of the things that I did in that book is I patterned after Stephen Covey's great book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you haven't read that book, read that book. It's an awesome book. But there's a chapter on each of the 7 skills that I believe women need in order to move into leadership roles. And certainly owning a business is moving into a leadership role. And the last one, I mean, 6 of those 7 are the same for men or women. You know, they're the same, really. I mean, we do them differently and we have to master them differently, but the skills are essential. But the 7th one is unique to women. And I call it womaninity. And it's a word that I coined, and maybe someday it will be in the dictionary. But womaninity is, it's really, to me, the parallel to masculinity. Femininity is not parallel to masculinity. Femininity is really about maybe our softer side. But I kind of say that womaninity is to masculinity as Ms. is to Mr. And, you know, Mrs. or Miss is really defining women in terms of our relationship to a man. But Ms., MS, is really just about us standing alone, who we are on our own. And it's none of anyone's business whether you are single or married, unless you want to tell them that.
Right.
But that's, womaninity is being comfortable in your skin, you know, as a woman, and leading as a woman. And each woman can decide that for herself. But, you know, for several decades, my generation of women were sort of forced or thought we had to try to model ourselves after men, because that was the only models that culture had of what a leader looked like. And so and thank heavens we went through that. It just took a couple of decades to get through that, not needing to dress like a man, not needing to talk like a man, act like a man, lead like a man. No, I mean, a woman leader is someone who's very comfortable in her own skin as a woman, but also tapping into all of the strengths of our gender.
Yes.
And there definitely are dramatic differences between men and women.
Oh, yeah.
And isn't that great? I like to think of, you know, humanity as like a bird with 2 wings. And you have the male and the female. And, you know, a bird with 1 wing cannot fly. And for thousands of years, the human family has been trying to fly with, you know, 1 wing tied behind its back. And so it's very important that women do not try to act like men,
Yes.
and do not minimize or walk away from the many, many strengths that we have as female human beings. And one of the most interesting pieces of research that I've read recently is about the fact that there's all this evidence that in situations that are like life and death survival situations, you know, plane crashes or people lost out in the jungle or in Antarctica in freezing conditions, that the groups that survive are the best, are all female groups.
Really?
And
Wow.
by far, all female groups survive much more than all male groups or even mixed gender groups.
Wow.
And that is really what they say it's about, is that women are still often not listened to by men. And men don't always listen to each other that much either.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
they're all right. They're all right. They all know the best way to do it.
I
And
get it.
even when you do have a certain number, that's why just a few women in a group is just a token or a presence. But you have to have a significant number of women in a group to really start being heard and bringing all of our expertise to that conversation. But women do listen to other women.
Yes.
And in a group where, you know, life or death is at stake based on all the skills and the brain power that everybody can bring to that situation, women survive in much greater numbers.
Yeah.
And that to me is all the evidence that you need, that we have tremendous skills to bring.
Yes.
To every discussion, you know, every discussion, every decision related to the human family.
Absolutely. Use our how do you say that word?
Womaninity. And there's a whole chapter in my book. It's like WOMANINITY.
Okay, we're going to have to get that word out into the world. Womaninity. Use your woman. I love it. Use your.
Like that?
Yeah, I do.
It's just a parallel word to masculinity, because, you know, I mean, masculinity is a great word. I mean, to me, it's like, you know, a masculine man is a pretty cool man, fully developed, you know, I mean, hopefully high consciousness, you know, not overloaded with testosterone. You know, and the same thing with a woman, you know, she's not an extreme version of femininity. I mean, she's a well-developed, fully developed female human being, tapping into all of her power.
I love it. I see a title, The Power and Grace of Womaninity.
There you go. There you go.
I love
That's my next book, right?
Yes. I'm going to use that as your title in your interview. Well, I wanted to move on to the fact that you are the current president of the Michigan chapter of the International Women's Forum. Now, I'm really interested in this platform. So tell us about the organization and the meaning that it holds for you and women around the globe.
Right. The International Women's Forum has been kind of a secret for about 40 years. And it was actually formed in the early 1970s in New York. And it was formed at the same time that the National Organization for Women was formed. The National Women's Political Caucus was formed. There were a number of different women's organizations that are still around today and very important, but they were being formed at that time. And they were formed by many of the same people, but for strategically different reasons. And the International Women's Forum was created in order to connect the rare women who were in senior leadership roles. Because there were very, very few of them at that time. And they might know about each other, but they didn't really have a way to know each other and to connect. And so the IWF is a by nomination, by invitation membership organization. So you can't just join it. You really have to be nominated because of your level of credentials and leadership and experience. So it takes a while. But it's grown over these years, and it is now, there are now 7,000 members in 33 countries, and almost every state in the United States, all of Canada, very, very large presence. And I'm based in Michigan, and we were not one of the founding chapters, but we are 40 years old. And so we've been around a significant period of time. And we now have 133 members. And really, if you kind of look at the, if you look at like who are the major leaders and CEOs and members of Congress and academics and religious leaders and sports leaders, I mean, it crosses all professions. And, you know, the movers and shakers of this state are members of the International Forum. And the other important piece about this is that its mission for a long time was to advance women's leadership.
Okay.
And last year they expanded that to include and champion equality worldwide. So that is the mission of the International Women's Forum. And on top of being a way for women in individual states and in individual countries to connect with the other leaders in their area, every year the IWF holds 2 global conferences. And every fall it's in the US or Canada. Every spring it's on another continent. And I have been to 15 of these global conferences all over the world. I mean, in Johannesburg, South Africa, in Tel Aviv, in Amman, Jordan,
wow,
Caribbean, and South America. But in all those years, almost 50 years, they never had come to Detroit, to Motown. And so a couple of years ago, I basically said, you know what, Detroit is on the rise, and it's time for the women leaders of the International Women's Forum to come to Detroit.
Good for you.
So we fought for it. We won it, which I kind of say it's like winning the Super Bowl of Global Women's Leadership Conferences. And we've been working on it for 3 years, and then the pandemic canceled it.
Oh, no.
It was this fall. It was going to be this October. But the good news is that we basically, you know, went back at it and said, hey, listen, we're not going to the back of the line.
That's right.
Yeah, and so we are now going to host the IWF Sisterhood World Leadership Conference in the fall of 2023 in Detroit.
Right. 2023. How exciting.
If I can, is that even though it's a membership organization, that non-members can attend these global conferences if they are registered by a member as a guest.
Ah, okay. That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if people can look up, just look up the International Women's Forum, IWF.org, and they can read all about the organization, which is really becoming a more important voice.
Absolutely. So now I'm curious, what would we expect if we were if someone were to attend the conferences? What sort of thing do you cover, or there are speeches by individuals? I'm just really curious.
Yeah, well, these conferences really look at global issues through a female lens. And so instead of, you know, 3 men on a panel and 1 woman, we do have men, but it would be 3 women and 1 man, you know, and so that the experts that we're bringing in on global topics are, you know, some of the most accomplished women in the world. And so the theme for the Detroit conference was to be the future city. And because Detroit has been a symbol to the world of a city in crisis, that was the Paris of North America at one point because of the auto industry, and then it went through tremendous 50 years of decline, and now is on the rise again. And so it's really a perfect example, a local example of the global issues, of the issues facing urban cities everywhere. And so it wasn't just looking at Detroit, it would be looking at what are the challenges and the opportunities of future cities. And some of Detroit's lessons included in that. But the speakers would come from all over the world. And the other pieces of it are a tradition of the IWF is the dine around. And so these conferences are 2.5 days. And on the first night, full night, instead of having dinner together in a big hotel somewhere, you have 600 women leaders who go off to individual homes for a private dinner.
Oh, wow.
And so you will be sitting in a private home in every, whatever part of the world we are in a private home of a member, with other women, with a group of maybe just 10 other women.
Oh, how fabulous is that?
Right. And so, hosting a global conference means finding 60 homes, for example, to host.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
But, but imagine that. I mean, I have been in a private home in Amman, Jordan. I have been in a private home in Johannesburg, South Africa, or in Barcelona, Spain.
That is such an incredible idea, to immerse those individuals into the culture, because when you have these gatherings, you're having people come from all over the world to America as well. And like you said, in Amman, Jordan, and wherever you are elsewhere around the world, you get to experience the culture firsthand because you're in someone's home. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And they also do behind the scenes, which is one complete afternoon, is you get out of the big conference sessions and you go out to these smaller experiences to experience some of the incredible places and museums, or people have choices of what they want to do, because maybe there'd only be 50 people at that behind the scenes. So a big piece of it is not only looking at global issues and hearing from some of the top experts in the world about these issues, but also really experiencing that place and the culture of that place, people of that place.
I'm thinking of what you're saying, and my mind goes to, only a woman could think of that. I don't know why, because it's not just that it's different, it's that it's inclusive, that it's, meet other families, other individuals that live here. I mean, I couldn't even imagine a men's conference doing that at all.
And I'll tell you the final evidence that the men would never do this is the closing gala is a great big black tie party, and we're all on the dance floor. I mean, there are 500 women. I mean, really, people are dancing until, well after midnight. It's like at a wedding, where everybody's dancing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Can you see all, 600 guys on the dance floor?
Oh, gosh. No. Are you kidding?
It just never happened. And we have so much fun.
Oh, that's fun. I love it. I just love it. I don't know if you have video of those, but if you don't, somebody needs to take video of it, because
we do. We have lots of video. But
good.
When I was dancing to Motown music in other parts of the world, I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, you got to come to Motown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Boy, are you going to
all over the world? And yeah, right.
Wow. That's going to be some party, Anne. I'll tell you. I'm going to be there. I love Motown.
Any of your listeners or summit attendees who haven't been to Detroit yet, Detroit is an incredible city, on the rise again. And so come visit us.
Yes, I am so happy for that, because you're right. I mean, it is a city that has gone through a lot, and it's wonderful to see that it is on the rise. Now, just moving on to one other thing that I would like for you to unpack is, when we had our conversation, you mentioned 3 steps that you can give us to becoming an effective female leader. Now, this is a leader, not as opposed to an entrepreneur. I know that some of those skill sets can cross over, but being an effective leader is someone who can influence and develop leadership attitudes for others. What 3 steps can you give us to becoming an effective female leader?
Yeah, well, the very first one, and I definitely talk about this in my book. I mean, the very, very first thing in terms of being a leader, I call it discover your purpose. And that's the fire in your belly.
Yes.
I mean, you have got to have that fire in your belly, because you have to understand that yourself. Like, what is your purpose? I mean, it's not about it's not about getting rich. I mean, rarely women, we know from research that women who start businesses and things, it's not just about getting rich or making money. There's something there that fuels them, that is their passion.
Yes.
And so number one, you really have to discover your purpose so that you understand, the fire in your belly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's number one. And number two is raise your voice. And I like to say, we spent a few decades of women trying to find their voices as they were moving into the professional world. But it's really time now for women to raise our voices.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's about being heard, and about weighing in, and about standing your ground. And so that's an essential one. And gosh, if I had to, can I say 4?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Say as many as you'd like.
Well, we talked about failure, and I call it get back in the saddle. I'm a horsewoman and a lifelong horsewoman, and big rider, and anyone who is an accomplished rider has been thrown off a lot of horses.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the difference is not that you haven't been thrown off of horses. It's the difference is that you overcome your fear, you dust yourself off, and you get back in the saddle and you charge right back into the fray.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's absolutely essential. And then the last one is something I call drink at dangerous waters.
Mm.
And drink at dangerous waters is, there's an analogy I read in a fabulous business book one time, but it's the idea of in a jungle that there's a watering hole. And all the different animals have to, in order to survive, they have to go to that watering hole. Mm-hmm. And the gazelles and the lions have to risk it to survive.
Right.
There. And it's dangerous waters for the prey.
Sure.
And what that's really about is, in order to thrive and to live a full life, up to your full potential, you have to drink at dangerous waters.
Mm.
And that's taking the risk of starting your business, asking for the money, asking for people's support, and stepping out of your comfort zone. And don't take reckless risks, but take strategic risks. Once you've done your research and laid the ground and prepared and everything, and you gotta still make that leap. That's about drinking at dangerous waters, and do it strategically.
That is really, really interesting. I love that. Drink from dangerous waters. And I love the story because it makes sense. I mean, you're right.
Yeah. If those gazelles don't go drink at that water, they're not going to survive.
They're not going to survive. Right. So we have to step into the net in order to move forward.
Exactly.
If you don't step into the net, then you're just going to languish, and
you're going to languish because you won't have that,
right, that
refreshing water.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Well, for the animals, it's very refreshing. I'm sure it is. So, this has been wonderful. I wanted to ask you, how do you define your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is all about humanity achieving its full purpose. And for a long time, I talked about my purpose in life as being to lift girls and women. And one of the fire in my belly is my sister Mary. And so I'm one of 7 children, and we lost our sister. I lost my sister Mary when she was 22 years old, and I was 25, and Mary committed suicide. And so as great a loss as that is, that she has stayed with me, and she has fueled my passion to see all girls and women achieve their full potential. But just like I mean, I've always been about social justice, but I felt like I was really where I could help the most was in terms of girls and women, because that's my area of expertise. But I really want to say at this moment that I am expanding what I'm all about, because I have been about it, but I'm raising my voice to expand it. To say it's not just girls and women, it's about social justice for all people of color who are still dramatically discriminated against. And in my lifetime, to do everything I can to help the human family move forward and achieve our full potential.
That's beautiful. So what do you do, Anne, to challenge yourself in life? Not that you haven't been challenging yourself all along, but is there anything that you say, okay, I've got to do this. I'm going to challenge myself now?
No, I ride horses. I mean,
I thought that was it, but I just wanted to hear you say it.
It's it, because you know what? Every time you get on a horse, I mean, I love being on a horse, and it feeds my soul. But also, you know, every time you get on a horse, something can happen. Because no matter how good a rider you are, I mean, something can happen, and you have to like just say, get over that fear and just say, hey, it's worth the risk. I'm going to live, and I'm going to live fully. And a couple years ago, I took the worst fall of my life. And I've been riding all my life, and it was really a Christopher Reeves kind of a fall. And I went right over the horse's head, and I landed, you know, I flipped, and I landed. I was either landing flat on my face or I was going to land on my head, and I had a helmet on. You know, it took a long time for me to get the courage to get back on, because I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm getting too old. Maybe the time has come where I need to stop riding. And my chiropractor and my family and my son all said, get back on that.
Oh, really? Even your chiropractor? Wow.
My chiropractor
shocked.
back together again. Exactly. And so I would say, I mean, we all need something like that.
Right.
Whatever it is. I mean, we all need something like that. But don't ever let go of that. I mean, find it, you know, find what that is that nourishes your joy. And make sure that you take time to do that, because it's that whole thing about putting on your own oxygen mask first.
Yes, I love it. In fact, it reminds me of a story that just came up in the news recently about the Queen, because she's up there in age and she goes riding all the time, and her family and doctors and friends all want to stop her from riding, because they're saying, you know, she's older, and if she falls, you know, she could break bones and not recover. And she's like, no, I've ridden all my life and I'm going to keep riding. So
good for her. Yeah. She was a horsewoman, but I hadn't read. Doesn't surprise me that they want to tell her no, but luckily she's the queen. And she can say, no.
I love it.
Tell me what to do. And we all have to act like the queen, right? And
yeah, that's true. That's true. But what a great example. Yeah. So tell us one thing that's not on your resume.
Oh my gosh. Great questions, Jane.
Thank you. I try.
Questions. Yeah. One thing that's not on my resume is serving on a corporate board. And I really want to encourage women to think about that, serving on corporate boards, not just nonprofit boards. I mean, yes, do that, but also to serve on corporate boards. And women need to think about that much younger than my generation of women did. You need to be really thinking about that in your late 40s, early 50s. Really strategically thinking about that. And there's a great organization called 2020 Women on Boards, which I am part of, and it's all about achieving gender equity, which means 50% on corporate boards. and it's essential because they pretty much make the rules about millions of employees at all these corporations around the world. And there's a lot of money to be made there. There's a lot of money to be made, and that's why the men don't want women on there. I mean, they're getting their buddies on those boards.
Yes.
But, you know, and I really want to encourage women to think about that. I should have thought about it a long time ago.
Right. Yeah, but that's not something you hear. Like, I'm so glad you brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, you know, when I talk to women, because, you know, once again, I mean, men have so many, I mean, they have thousands of examples of seeing men on boards to sort of get the idea like, well, maybe I could do that. Whereas women still have so few examples that we need to really remind women to think about that as an option. And it's a great, people that,
yes,
a board, you're making 50,000, 100,000, 250,000 a year just to serve on a corporate board. There's a lot of money there. And, you know, you have to have the credentials and the skills, but many women have those skills now. But it's part of your network also. You have to put your network to work and activate it. And, you know, 2020 Women on Boards, you can find them on the internet, and they offer fantastic workshops in terms of telling you exactly what you need to do in terms of starting to position yourself that way.
We should put that in a link beneath your bio. That would be good. Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience? I know you have a great special for your book, so maybe bring that up and we will have that again on your on the links beneath your bio. But you've got a very generous offer. Maybe let our audience know what that is.
Okay, I'm very happy for people to buy my book. I mean, you can certainly get it on Amazon, but for you to make sure you get the updated 3rd edition, which every time it's updated, I update all the research, and also to have a signed copy from me, that's nice and clean. They will need to get it through my website. You can buy it directly through me, and it'll be signed, and we'll make sure we get it to you, and it'll be a 50% discount. At $10 a piece.
Oh, wonderful. So buy it through your website, not through Amazon.
Yeah, not through Amazon. You know, Jeff Bezos is a trillionaire now, and so
I know.
Enough already with Amazon.
I agree.
Get it directly from me, and I'll get it to you. Yeah. So, but also I hope people will listen to the podcast.
Yes, tell us a little bit about those.
My podcast is Powering Up, and I call it a cross-generational, cross-cultural conversation about leadership, power, and gender. And I also host the podcast of the International Women's Forum, which is called Game Changers. And that's another fantastic podcast out there with women leaders from all over the world.
Yes, I've heard one of them. Yes, they're very good. But now you don't have, do you have to be a member to listen to the ones on the?
No.
Okay.
And actually I post the Game Changers podcast on my Powering Up site as well.
Okay.
They can find wherever you get your podcast, you'll find Game Changers.
Okay.
And you'll find Powering Up with Anne Doyle.
Okay, wonderful. And we'll have those links available as well in Anne's bio. So I just have 4 final questions that are kind of for fun because I like to take people out of their reality. And it shocks me how some people just are thrown for a loop, but that's okay. So here goes. The first question is, if your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
Oh.
I see. I people agonize. I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought it would be fun. See, that's my mindset. Is these are fun, but anyway, it's okay. It's interesting.
Don't stop me.
Don't stop you.
Don't stop me.
I love it.
Yep.
I love that title.
Do you like that?
Now you got to write it, Anne.
Don't think too hard. We'll have to think about it off the top of your head. And so I would just say, don't stop me.
Oh, you got to write that book, whatever it is. I love it. So what name would you give your character in your epic story?
Oh, you know, one of my role models was Annie Oakley.
Mm.
Now, many of your attendees, listeners might not know who Annie Oakley is, but you know, Annie Oakley was a great American sharpshooter. She was like the Great West, you know. And I mean, I grew up. My early role models were cowgirls.
Mm-hmm.
Dale Evans. I mean, they were riding horses and they were shooting the bad guys, and
I love it.
along with the guys. And so, absolutely, I would say Annie Oakley.
Okay. I could see that, definitely.
And my dad always called me Annie, you know. So.
Oh, did he? Oh my gosh.
Dad
Okay.
always called me Annie.
There
Yeah.
you go. And how would you characterize your epic life?
You know, when you say that in terms of character, how would I characterize my epic life? Do you mean what I would like it to be, or when I look back on it, or?
How you, if you've written a book of fiction and this was your epic story, how would you characterize your epic life?
Yeah, I would like my character to be a woman who made a difference on her watch. You know, not just for her own individual accomplishments, but for the world, who truly, you know, made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And that would make me joyful. And I would want her, to have been happy, to have been a happy warrior, a joyful, happy warrior who fought for the world to be a better place for everybody until her last breath.
Mm.
And she never stopped riding horses.
Oh, I love it. That's an epic characterization. I love it. One last question.
Can I mention one more thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One more thing that I want to mention is I want to mention that I'm a mother.
Mm.
And I have a son. My son is 28 years old, and I raised him very much by myself.
Mm.
I went through a divorce when my son was a year and a half old.
Oh boy.
I married a fantastic guy who, unfortunately, we watched him destroy himself with alcohol, drugs. And I got to a point in my life where I had to save myself and save my son.
Mm.
And I did. And his dad died when he was 7 years old.
Oh,
and so
boy.
I very much raised my son
Mhm.
by myself. And he's a fantastic young man. Of course, we went through our teenage years that every parent can understand. But I always felt that parenting was the hardest job I ever did.
Mm.
All the jobs that I've had and the challenging jobs that I've had, because I am a risk taker and I am somebody who wants a challenge, it was really the only job I ever thought I might fail at.
Mm.
And because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And a lot at stake.
Yes, and being a single parent too.
Yeah, but it also is the experience that enriched me and helped me grow the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really challenged me, and it softened my heart towards men, because as angry as I get sometimes about, you know, the inequality and the discrimination and the men who don't see it and don't understand it and won't listen. There's nothing like a little baby boy or a little boy to soften your heart. And he's a fantastic young man. So he's really, I want to make sure that my epic character also was a great mother.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, this is the last one then. If you had an epic superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, I absolutely, I'd want to fly.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, I would want to fly, and I would want to fly great distances because I'm most definitely a global traveler. And I have many, many places all around the world, and new cultures that I want to experience, and places to visit. And I think we're going to be limited in terms of that for a while. I'm not sure when we'll be able to travel globally again as easily as we have. But I would also like to fly because it gets you up in the air so you can see the big picture and get out of the weeds.
Yeah, you're the second person to say fly, so that's really interesting. That's interesting. Well, Anne, it's been such a pleasure, and I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your leadership knowledge and inspiration, and really telling us how to become and live the life of a woman leader. And I would love now for our audience, to go over to my Facebook page and write a comment. Tell us what your epic takeaway was from this conversation. And remember, this is where you imagine, create, and build a life and business doing what you love. Until next time, I'm Jane Applegath, and you're watching the Epic Vision Zone.